As we look at this chapter, one of the things you want to know about muscles is that they have the ability to contract or shorten in response to a stimulus. They also are able to respond to stimuli by producing electrical impulses, which are quick ways to get information around the body, and these are called action potentials. Extensibility, the ability to be stretched, and so they can stretch and also recoil, which means they're able to return to their original length after being stretched, and we call this characteristic elasticity. You know there are three types of muscle tissue: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac, and in this chapter we're really focusing on skeletal muscle. This is a type of muscle that is striated, has those striped appearance, is voluntary, which means that you can consciously control it, and it's also multinucleate. As we look at these muscles, we're going to see there is a attachment to bones called the origin, and another attachment of the muscle to a bone called the insertion. The insertion is the one that moves, while the origin is attached to the bone that stays relatively stationary. And so we're going to look at some of these muscles as we go through. And if a muscle is named according to the origin and insertion, then the origin will be the first part of the name and the insertion the second part. For instance, the name sternocleidomastoid is a muscle that has the sternum and clavicle, sternocleido, as the origins, and then the insertion point is the mastoid process on the skull. The belly is the middle part of the muscle, and muscles are arranged in pairs that oppose each other. If you're thinking about your arm, your brachial region, the main muscle that is a mover for flexion of the elbow is the biceps brachii on the front of the arm, and then on the back of the arm is the triceps brachii. If you bend your arm or flex at the elbow, then that is going to be the biceps brachii that does that action, and the triceps brachii will be the one that does the opposite action. Muscles require a lot of energy, and this energy comes in the form of ATP. You learned the mitochondria in the cell produce most of the ATP, and in muscles there is a great need for energy in order for the muscles to contract. So we have many mitochondria in our muscles, and at the same time that they're making ATP, they're also generating heat. Every time you contract your muscle, a lot of heat. In order for a muscle to contract, a skeletal muscle, the nervous system must stimulate the muscle. And what this is showing you here is a term called a motor unit. That's going to be a motor neuron, nerve cell, and all the muscle fibers it stimulates. In a motor unit, a motor neuron can stimulate a few muscle fibers for precision of movement, or in some cases stimulate many muscle fibers, and that would be a very strong movement. In order to get the message from the motor neuron to the muscle fiber, and here's the motor neuron, and here is a muscle fiber or one muscle cell, there needs to be a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, or ACH for short. Acetylcholine will bind to. Acetylcholine is produced by the neuron and then is released onto the muscle fibers. And once it's released, it starts a change within the cell that leads to contraction. Calcium is an ion that is necessary for a muscle to contract. Action depends on many factors, and one thing I want to mention is the weight of the load, or how much is being picked up. We're going to see that if you have a larger load than you can lift, or that you can generate force with, then you're not going to be able to pick it up. And we're going to look at different types of contractions. But other factors are the strength of the stimulus, which has to do with your nervous system, the duration of the stimulus, the speed of the application, and then also the temperature of the muscle. Muscle fatigue is caused by accumulation of lactic acid in the muscle. So when you're vigorously exercising and blood is not able to transport enough oxygen to your muscle, then when you're producing ATP, lactic acid is also produced. Muscle tone is what maintains our body posture, and in muscles, some of the muscle fibers are contracting even when the muscle is relaxed. Muscle contractions can be either isotonic or isometric. Isotonic is when muscles contract and shorten and pull on a bone and move that bone, and it occurs when we lift something or put it back down. Isometric contractions occur when the muscle does not shorten, but muscle tension increases. And this would be true if we're carrying a box and we're trying to hold it in place. We're not really shortening the muscle, but we are generating force. Or if you're pushing against a wall, that would also be a type of isometric contraction because you're pushing on the wall, but it's not moving. So here is an isotonic contraction on the left and an isometric contraction on the right. We're also going to go over different kinds of skeletal muscles. Some of them are named according to their location. Like if you see brachii in a muscle, it means it's in the arm. Or femoris means it's in the thigh. Another one would be the number of origins. Bicep means 2 origins. Tricep means 3 origins. I already told you about those that are named according to the origin and the insertion. And some are named according to the action, like an adductor muscle or a flexor muscle. So as we go through and look at these principal skeletal muscles, you're going to want to know what the functions are in lecture and where they're found in lab. Frontalis is the one that will wrinkle your forehead. For instance, if you're talking and you wrinkle your forehead, your eyebrows go up, that's your frontalis. Your orbicularis oris is the one that compresses and closes your lips. The platysma is the one that draws down the sides of your mouth, and it's found here in your cheek area and goes down your neck. The zygomaticus is your smiling muscle. It goes up from the side of your mouth up to your zygomatic bone or your cheekbone. And then your orbicularis oculi is the one that encircles your eye and closes your eye. The masseter muscle is your chewing muscle. So when you clench your teeth, you can see the masseter stick out. And also the temporalis muscle is here in your temporal region. You have a sternocleidomastoid muscle that goes from your mastoid down to your sternum and clavicle. When both contract, it's going to pull your head down, and that is going to flex your neck. The buccinator compresses your cheeks. So here are those muscles that I just mentioned to you. And here's some deeper muscles so you can really see that buccinator and masseter and temporalis muscle. Other muscles for the upper extremities are the trapezius muscle, and that is a muscle that is found on the back. You can see it's on the back of the neck and also going down the upper back. Another one is the deltoid muscle here. The deltoid pulls your arm out to the side or abducts your arm at the shoulder, and your trapezius extends the head or holds up the head. There's also a latissimus dorsi muscle, and this muscle means, latissimus means widest. So the widest muscle on the back, dorsi, dorsal, and the latissimus dorsi muscle is going to extend and adduct the arm or pull the arm in toward the body like if you're swimming and using the free stroke. Here is the pectoralis major muscle, and that is going to do the opposite of the latissimus dorsi. It's going to flex at the shoulder, but it also is going to adduct the arm. The triceps brachii muscle is on the back of the arm, and that is going to extend the arm at the elbow. And here we have a biceps brachii muscle, which flexes the arm at the elbow. So those work opposite each other. And here is that triceps brachii muscle on the back of the arm, and again the latissimus dorsi muscle. Here's other examples. There are also extensors and flexors for your wrist. The flexor muscles flex the wrist, the flexor carpi for wrist, and the extensors extend the wrist. There are also muscles of the trunk, and this first group are muscles that are abdominal muscles and also the diaphragm, which helps you to breathe. So when we're looking at abdominal muscles, we can see the rectus abdominis here in the middle, and then the external oblique. Oblique means the fibers are running at an angle, and under that, the internal oblique. In these pictures, you can see the entire trapezius on the back. On the other one, it was cut away. Here's the entire latissimus dorsi on the back. And here is the gluteus maximus, and here is the biceps femoris, which is different from the muscle in the front of the thigh called the rectus femoris. You want to know that one as well. That one straightens out your knee or extends your knee. And here is the sartorius, a very long, thin muscle that goes across your thigh. In the back of your leg is a gastrocnemius muscle and soleus muscle. They both pull up on the heel, and so they help to what we call plantar flex your foot. That is all I'm going to go over for now. Make sure you study the muscles for lab. You're going to have those on your lab practical, and if you have any questions, let me know.